Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the Real Chat Daddy Show. I am your host, Chat Daddy. Glad to be here with you guys on a hump day. It's midweek. It is the second Wednesday of December 2020 during a year of the pandemic. But tonight we have another great show planned for your viewing and listening pleasure. Tonight is all about mental health. My co-host is a mental health professional. We have another mental health professional joining us later on in the show. And tonight we want to try to alleviate some of the stress and fears that people are having during this pandemic, as well as the holiday season. So let me introduce the good-looking man sitting next to me. He is, oh, come on now. He is Alan Tony Amberg, and he is a noted psychiatric nurse practitioner. He has his own business. He's been in this business a while. He's been here with us before, and I welcome my friend back. Happy holidays, my friend. How are you?
Happy holidays. That vacation has just put a sparkle in your eyes. What a smile.
Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. You're right. A good vacation will do it every time. You and I kind of talked about that. And, you know, I felt guilty, but it was in the name of journalism. It was in the name of trying to figure out what people, you know, would have to do going forward. Because, Tony, we all are now suffering with COVID fatigue, you know, as well as I do.
Right, for sure. In fact, one of the things we'll talk about a little later, but there was a big article in the opinion section of the New York Times today talking about, it's by Farhad Manjoo, and what he's talking about is the fourth wave of COVID. And the fourth wave of COVID, he says, and I have to agree.
Wait, Tony, I need to cut you off. Did you say the fourth wave of COVID?
Right.
Oh my God. Okay, go ahead.
So what he is postulating, and I agree with this, is that the fourth wave is the mental health toll, right? Not only what we're feeling now, but what's going to happen over the next few months before vaccines come out. And it's going to be a dark winter. I mean, you know, I think our president-elect has aptly said we've got some very difficult days ahead until we get to the end of the tunnel. But the good news is that the end of the tunnel is in sight. And that light coming at us is not a train. It is sunshine. And so the question is, how do we emerge again from the darkness? How are we going to rebuild our ties, rebuild our social structures, gain faith again in everything we thought we knew? So it's going to be a very interesting trip. And there are people who can help along the way. It's one of the things I try to do. So I'm excited.
We're getting feedback. Wonder where's that coming from. Let's see. Let me is it still feedback? Can you hear me good now?
I hear you fine. I didn't hear anything.
I don't know where the feedback was coming. It's on my end, I guess. So Tony, one of the things today, I was out in the supermarket and I'm starting to notice that a lot of people are wearing the mask under their nose. And you know, even I was looking for an item today. The manager, she came out with the mask under her nose. And I'm thinking, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. So imagine a number of people who are in the position I am of fearful and paranoid because people are now not wearing the mask properly.
Well, this is a terrible problem. And as I said to you last time, I think that, we have a couple of epidemics in the country going on right now. And one of the mental health epidemics has a technical jargon of not very bright. And I think that's a harsh thing to say because on the one hand, we're all desperate to be free of these masks. We want to see each other's faces again. It's a huge deal. I mean, half the time I see my colleagues and I work with them for months before I even know what they look like.
Right.
So, but the other part of this is how many people do we need to see get sick? How many people do we need to see die? Since Pritzker and Health Commissioner Nzike have put us back in the state of mostly lockdown. The amazing part is it's working, right? Just a few weeks ago, we were reporting 14,000 new cases a day. Now we're down to 8,000 cases a day. It is still an appalling number. It's an unbelievable number, but we're coming down almost in half now. And it's because people are wearing masks. There's no vaccine. It's us just doing what we're supposed to do. And if we keep doing it, that number is going to keep falling. We did that once. We got those numbers all the way down. And we did it with masks and we did it with distance. And so it's painful.
But if you look at places like California, where they have now restricted people from being able to be out at all of LA County is closed down now. What do you think? Do you think maybe we need to close? I mean, Illinois is closed now for the most part, but do you think we may need to close our country down at this point again?
Oh, if we had only done it the first time, millions of people wouldn't have been spared. If we had done it the first time and done it right, and figured out how to reopen the economy with people using proper caution instead of being told over and over again that this was no worse than a cold. And, I have to hand it to people, and I agree with you, Janice. I think we have to hand it to people like our mayor and our governor, because these were very unpopular choices. And it's hard to stress just how disastrous it could have been. I mean, as it is, we've been creeping up in our ICU beds. But if you look at places like New Mexico, Albuquerque has no ICU beds because of COVID. So imagine if you get a heart attack, there is nowhere for you to go. Places like North Dakota. I mean, I think I read in an article in The Atlantic that there were no beds staffed with nurses left in the state. So, I mean, none of this was necessary, except that people kept being told that this wasn't such a big deal. And I'm here to tell you, I lived through it. It's a big deal.
Yes, it is. All right. Well, with that being said, I want to give the daily COVID-19 update numbers. Tony, today, Illinois health officials announced 8,256 new confirmed or probable cases of COVID-19. We unfortunately had 179 additional fatalities, which now brings the total known number of infections in the state of Illinois to 812,430, with a statewide death total now of 13,666, Tony. The sign of the beast since the start of this pandemic. So, our thoughts and prayers go out to all those people. But again, for us now to be up to 13,666 people, that's a lot of lives that have perished during this pandemic for our state.
And a lot of people who have been left scarred. I mean, I was lucky. As sick as I was, I don't seem to have had any major side effects. But there are people who talk about having pain for months, who have a little bit of mental confusion, who have permanent damage to their lungs and other organs of their body. So, most people will not have a disastrous reaction to this disease, but, enough will. I mean, you remember polio?
Yes.
Lots of people got polio. Almost everybody got polio. The problem was it took out a whole bunch of people, and the country came together to stop it and to make vaccines mandatory, and did everything possible to eradicate this scourge. And it now only exists in a few countries of the world. So, I think that that's so important. I mean, remember the rationale for vaccinating children in schools with a live vaccine, with a weakened version of the virus, is that they would go home and they would infect everybody else in their family so that they would get immunity too.
Well, Tony, in the Black community, we've had a huge problem with trusting vaccines. Henrietta Lacks, Tuskegee Institute. This is something that, in our community, we're saying, look, until rich white people and famous people start lining up. I thought it was very noble of our three former presidents to all agree to do it on television. The Queen of England. But then, a lot of people say, how we know what those people are getting versus what we will be getting. And so, I think that people are going to be very hesitant to run out to get a vaccination.
Well, I think that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being hesitant to go out and get the vaccination until you feel sure that it works. But, I think one of the things that people need to think about is if you don't trust the vaccine, trust the number of people who have been sick and died, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and so many of them have been in the Black community. I mean, disproportionately in the Black community and among the elderly. So, I think the question I'm coming up to is when the vaccine is issued. I work at a major hospital downtown, and I trust our infectious disease department. They pretty much check out everything related to COVID or any other illness before they put it out with us, because we're going to be the first ones to get it, because in the hospital, we're at highest risk.
Right. Right. Yes.
I mean, my office at the hospital is all the way in the back of a COVID unit, So I think that, at that point, I'm going to trust the experts at our hospital to tell me if it's safe enough. And if it's safe enough, I'll get it.
Okay.
But in that case, if you're not going to get it, please, I beg you, mask over nose and mouth. It doesn't work if it's over the nose, right? And I beg you, social distancing. And it's going to be really hard because we had a lovely summer. We ate out, we walked, we saw our friends at a distance. We could sit at a picnic table a distance apart and have the wind blow past and feel like maybe it was safe.
Right.
It's really hard now. So I urge you, if you don't want the vaccine, please still don't get the virus. I mean, we've got, look at these people who went to motorcycle rallies and political parties. I mean, how many people in the White House now have COVID?
There was a swingers convention in New Orleans 2 weeks ago, and 20 people at the swingers convention ended up testing positive from COVID, and several of them became very ill from COVID. And so, that just goes to show you people are still keeping up that type of behavior. And, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Like, you are swapping out your mate with somebody else during a pandemic. That's just not right to me.
I think people think that the healthcare system is unlimited and that you can get everything. But I think people, especially people who have friends or family who are on Medicaid, know that's simply not true.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't just endlessly get healthcare. I worked in a community clinic for a while in Chatham, and there was darn little healthcare to be had, and certainly little mental health care to be had. Mm-hmm. So for people to volunteer to get sick, we're running out of beds. I mean, I can't imagine. I know what's going on at the hospital I work at, and I can't imagine what's going on at some of the community hospitals, St. Bernard's and Jackson Park and Mount Sinai and Holy Cross and, Trinity, Advocate Trinity.
South
Shore. I can't even imagine what's happening there. Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine what's happening in their emergency rooms, what's happening with the beds. How are they bidding against the biggest health systems to get enough PPE, to get enough ventilators, to get enough equipment? I can't imagine it.
Wow. Well, with that being said, the FDA Advisory Committee is set to meet and discuss Pfizer's request for an emergency authorization for the vaccination to get moving. And this will be tomorrow. And with the possible approval, everything will start rolling out here next week. And so, we hopefully that'll happen, help people, especially healthcare workers. I just want to take my hat off to all of you all, Tony. Just thank you from the bottom of our hearts that you all are so dedicated and committed. And what people don't realize, it's everybody in the healthcare system. I have a friend who he cleans the operating rooms when operating rooms are done, and imagine that job. And so, it's just, it affects everyone. And just to know, COVID is ruling our hospitals now is just unbelievable.
Well, it's, again, folks, I just want to remind you, let's keep doing the right thing. The numbers have come down 6,000 cases a day already. Mm-hmm. Let's just keep doing the right thing. It's working. It's working, and we don't have to be reliant on vaccines and technology. It's really simple. It's hard to do because simple is not easy.
Right.
But we don't need good insurance to get and wear masks. We can do a fashion statement on our masks. We can model it. We can make it cool. I mean, if you're somebody who everybody likes to hang around and be part of your circle, do them all a favor. Model it. Show how cool it is to wear a mask. There we are.
There we go. All right. Well, with that being said, I want us to get in the car and take a little drive over to our friends in Indiana. Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb, as of today, has suspended all elective surgeries at hospitals in Indiana from December 16th through January 3rd. So, Tony, I take it that's not a smart move, my friend, or is it way too late?
Well, the point is, it happened because he waited way too late to do something. Indiana was open for business. We weren't going to wear masks too much. We didn't want to restrict people's individual liberties, and remember that just because surgeries are elective doesn't mean people don't need them. People need their hip replacements and their knee replacements and their hernia surgeries. All elective means is that it doesn't have to be done right now. Mm-hmm. But for people to have to wait months with very uncomfortable conditions. The other problem is back to community hospitals. Hospitals make their money off of doing procedures. So when you cancel all those elective surgeries, then all of those community hospitals that we rely on are just going to start hemorrhaging cash. Mm-hmm. They're going to start losing money hand over fist. And what does that mean? It means in communities like East Chicago, where I think they have St. Catherine's and, Methodist Hospital in Gary, Indiana. I mean, these institutions are probably hanging on by the skin of their teeth because Indiana Medicaid is significantly worse than Illinois Medicaid. And, and who loses out?
The patient, the people, the everyday they lose out every time. All right. Well, Tony, the vaccination is now being given out in Russia, and the heads to be in Russia are advising their citizens not to drink alcohol. A health official warned anyone getting the vaccination against COVID-19 with Russia's Sputnik V vaccine should give up alcohol for almost 2 months because they don't know what it'll do. They don't want it to affect your system, and they have gotten backlash from all the Russian people. And Popova, head of the consumer health watchdog, told a radio station that people should stop drinking alcohol at least 2 weeks before getting their first of 2 injections. So now, do you think, Tony, that we would have to give up alcohol here with our injections? Or, I don't know.
Well, you're asking a psychiatric guy to talk about vaccines, but here's what we know. We know that we don't know anything about how Russia developed or tested its vaccine.
Right.
They're not really forthcoming with the numbers. We're not even sure if the numbers are right. One of the reasons why we are behind Britain and Canada in approving the Pfizer vaccine is that those countries tend more. And by the way, the United Arab Emirates just approved the Chinese vaccine, I think yesterday or today. But they tend to rely on what the company tells them. And here the FDA refused to do that. The FDA insisted that they would take their time, that they would go through all the data from scratch, review it all again, and see if they agreed with the company's findings or if there were problems to be had. Wow. So that's, I think that's another layer of security. We got to hope for the best here. My fear is that if these first vaccines don't work out, then nobody will take them.
Right.
Right. If somebody says, "Oh, the next one's better," but I will tell you, this is something we go. Am I talking too much?
No, you're fine. You're good. You're very informative. You're fine. Thank you.
So this is something we go through with the flu every year. The health officials and the pharmaceutical agent companies try to determine what is the next version of the flu going to look like, what will be most predominant in the fall. And so they make a prediction because flu mutates very fast. It changes its form very fast. And it usually is doing a lot of this in Asia because there are a ton of people and it passes between animals and people, chickens and pigs and humans.
Right.
And so some years we have a very effective flu vaccine, and some years it's 45 or 50%. Even so, at 45 or 50%, it's still worth it. Because if 1 out of every 2 people is getting coverage, then that dramatically reduces the risk of the population as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's interesting. Well, Tony, we have a local story to talk about. As you guys all heard, the owner of Ann Sather's restaurant, who happens to be a city of Chicago alderman, was busted. He was allowing, or his management and staff, I allegedly, I'm telling the story how it was told to me, was allowing people to dine in the restaurant, people that they knew, people that, I guess family like, because in certain neighborhoods, people have to have their comfort zones of where they eat. I get all of that, but it's a no-no right now, and many other restaurants are not allowed to do it. And so he was slapped with a fine. Mayor Lori Lightfoot said that she was deeply disappointed with Alderman Tom Tunney's decision, and he's been a long time alderman and got money, PPE money. And so what do you think about that situation? And then what do you think will happen to our dining here in Chicago? World-class dining, Tony.
Well, I love this. We're talking about all kinds of things that are not actually my professional expertise. But here's what I will tell you. I don't know much about what happened with Tom Tunney, but I used to be involved. I had my own radio show in the LGBT community. And certainly through the 90s and early 2000s, I knew Tom Tunney and Ann Sather restaurant very well.
Good.
And I have to tell you, the sheer amount of money and energy and donations that he made to community organizations, a senior citizen clinic that he gave free space to, and some supplies for years until it grew into its own full ability to stand alone. And so I would just say, like everything else, sometimes I don't know if he screwed up, but sometimes people do. And it's important not to throw out the entire history with the bathwater. It sort of reminds me of President Obama's pastor at Trinity. Yes. Jeremiah Wright, right?
Yes, Pastor Jeremiah Wright.
Right. And remember, he made this one comment, and suddenly people all over America were talking about what a terrible man this was. Well, I think any of us who know Jeremiah Wright's background know that he was a hero. He was a hero. He did amazing things for the community. Certainly in the AIDS epidemic, he was out there promoting families and teaching other clergy, how not to be homophobic, how to welcome their children home, how to give them care. And yes, this was something that God allowed.
Yes.
And he did that for so many kinds of people, not just that. And so I kind of fear damning a person for something that you've only heard the headline of. And again, not throwing out the history. So I'm not an expert on that story. I will say this. I am a little disturbed because I have seen restaurants that are doing what they call outdoor dining.
Yes.
And outdoor dining consists of, in one case, taking a patio. One time I went there and it was a patio, right? And there was open air and it was a patio. And the next time I went back, they built a wall all the way around it and they draped an awning across the top. And so that didn't sound like outdoor dining to me anymore. I saw another restaurant that put up a tent. It was a pretty close quarters tent. So I'm thinking to myself, how is this outdoor dining? So I don't know. I don't know what restaurants are going to do. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we need a really good aid package. And I don't understand why some of the members of Congress don't think the American people need help anymore. Why is that? Why do they think people don't need help anymore? They don't think the cities need help or the states while we're laying off teachers and police officers and healthcare workers. They don't think ordinary people deserve to have a good unemployment benefit. What little is left is going to expire at Christmas. Who does such a thing?
Mm-hmm.
And businesses need help. They need help.
Yeah, absolutely. I could agree with you 100%. If you look at places like Canada, other countries, they've given their citizens, continuous help and assistance. We've not even really heard much about Canada throughout this entire pandemic. I've been saying on this show that I've talked to several people from Canada, and they seem to be fine. They're keeping their numbers at bay. They're helping those that are in need. And yet, we are still very much suffering here in the United States, and it's just ridiculous.
And it's deliberate.
Yeah, it is. It really, really is. All right. Well, Tony, let's do some whimsical things. Today is
Please, I need a break from COVID.
Oh, I do too. Look, we'll talk more about that. For those of you all that are just joining us, welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the Real Chat Daddy Show. I am Chat Daddy, your host. Glad to be here with you guys on Hump Day. It is the second Wednesday of December 2020, and we're exactly 16 days away from Christmas. Well, Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, and the new year, but 16 days away from Christmas. And so tonight we've dedicated our entire show to mental health awareness. Coming up on the show in just a little bit, Dr. Wanda Parker will join us. We always love when she's here. I have a couple of scenarios for her tonight that people have submitted to me on how should they handle certain situations. Tony, that ought to be a lot of fun.
I can't wait.
We have one young lady who lost 3 family members this year, and losing these 3 family members, it wasn't to age, it wasn't to, it was all due to COVID, and they were all at, just amazing phases in their life. So she shared a great story that I want to share tonight. And then later on in the show, our good friend, Mr. Alan Tony Amberg, he will be doing. That's this guy next to me over there. Tony will be talking about, if you say you need mental health therapy, does that mean you're crazy? How you can navigate your way through the mental health field? What does the medication mean? All of that. He's here tonight to help us out with that. And I'm just really excited about that. Just the entire show tonight is the bomb diggity. So, Tony, today is National Pastry Day. What is your favorite pastry?
Oh, God. I love this question. This is
so much talking
about COVID.
Yes.
So what do I like? Well, I have to say I'm mad about red velvet cupcakes with cream cheese frosting.
Yes.
I love wonderful pecan pie with vanilla ice cream.
Yes.
There was a store when I was at the clinic in Chatham. I don't know if you know it. It's Uncle John's Barbecue at the corner of 83rd and Cottage Grove.
Yeah.
And they had the best barbecue. But they also had the most amazing donuts. I only know of one other store whose donuts I thought were better. And I don't know if anybody's gone to Stan's Donuts, which are heaven. But, that donuts is pretty amazing. I mean, I ate way too many of them. Let me see. Well, what's your favorite? Tell me what your favorite.
I have to co-sign with you. That donuts is absolutely amazing. I know where it is. And now that you said that, I'm probably going to have to end up having them on one night because they are great. And I'm sure several people who are watching this will say they agree. Let me see. Favorite dessert. I love a good pecan pie. I really do. Yesterday was National Brownie Day, and
I
I
love
love
brownies.
I do
Yes.
too. I love a great brownie. So I mean, I don't know. That's I all of it is fattening, but I'd rather have that than food sometimes.
Well, I hear you. I often think that dessert is an excuse for whipped cream, you
Oh,
know?
yes, yes, it is.
But so wait. So if you have the Dat family on, if you can manage to get out of them the recipe for the barbecue sauce that they put on the chicken, please tell me.
You
I
like?
want to make it
Oh,
because
you love that chicken? Isn't it amazing?
I'm not down there. Well, actually, it was the turkey tips. That
Okay.
was my favorite, the turkey tips.
Okay. Well,
But
we'll have to work that out. We'll have to figure out how we'll be able to get you some food from there. All right.
all right.
We may even have you back as co-host that night. I got you. We'll work it all out for you,
Ah,
brother.
sneaky,
Yes,
sneaky,
yes. I see.
sneaky.
I know what I'm doing on this show. So listen, today is also National Christmas Card Day. National Christmas Card Day is the day you're supposed to sit down, organize everything, and get your Christmas cards out so they arrive on time. And Christmas cards used to be very fashionable when I was young and in my early 20s and 30s. I would get Christmas cards from everybody. I'm lucky now if I get maybe 4 Christmas cards a year because Christmas cards had become a lost art. But because of the pandemic, Christmas cards are back. So are you pro Christmas cards, Tony? Yeah, you're a Christmas card dude. I see it all in your face.
Well, okay. I'm going to say something that's popular, and I'm going to say something that's unpopular.
Uh-oh.
So I'm sorry, Chat Daddy. I'm the Grinch who stole Christmas cards. So the first thing is that I think personal letters are really exceptional nowadays. You
Okay.
know, there is nothing that beats in this time where we're so hungry for contact, getting a personal letter. And, and post office problems notwithstanding, I think that's a wonderful thing to do. Now I'm going to say something that's not quite so popular.
Okay.
And we'll talk about this later, but one of the stressors that people are feeling at this time of year is not only the darkness, but the image of of Christmas having to be a perfect time of the year. You know, where people are having perfect experiences with their families, getting fabulous gifts. Everybody is happy with each other because isn't every family happy with each other? And it's very stressful for people who are not having a very nice Christmas. And we have to remember that some of this stuff we do, as much fun as it is, was created by companies to sell us stuff. And Christmas cards were created by the ladies' magazines of the 1880s. People didn't do it before that.
Okay.
So by all means, send your Christmas cards. By all means, send your personal letters. But don't use it as an excuse to beat yourself up if you don't send like 1,000 cards to everybody.
Yes.
Because it just do what's good. Don't feel the need to do what's perfect.
Yes. Well, Tony, I'm so glad you said that because I was suffering with a little guilt about the holiday this year. Of course, I decorated the beautiful tree here in the studio. I kind of threw some battery operated lights on that tree. But in my home this year, I just did not have the energy to go dig out the trees and all the garland and decorations. So I put, stockings on the fireplace. Today, I love designing my own fresh wreath every year. So I got that complete and we'll hang it.
Excellent.
But that's it. I'm not feeling because I'm used to having people over and holiday entertaining. Is hell, who's gonna see this stuff other than the immediate household people?
Right. So, I think it's really smart to do what makes us feel good and not use this as an opportunity to beat ourselves because we don't have the money to buy all the Christmas gifts we want. In this era right now, it's hard even to like bake cookies unless you can drop them at somebody's door.
Yeah.
So I mean, even those fun things that we used to do, let's just all make a promise to each other that when we're all back together, we'll make it special. Because I think next year, I bet we're going to find that we're a whole lot more grateful for that uncle that used to irritate us and the cousin who was always a little too rambunctious and all the rest, because thank God they're back.
Well, then, you know what, Tony? This conversation is definitely getting ready to move in the right direction. Our next guest, she's been on my radio show, here on the digital show. Every holiday, we have to have Dr. Wanda Parker with us because she helps us, as you said, to navigate that annoying uncle. She helps us to, navigate those grandchildren that are so horribly bad. So, look, Tony, your Grinch is a good Grinch. It fits in with what we're talking about tonight.
Oh, thank God. People, please don't throw stones at me or leave coal in my stockings, okay?
We love you, Tony. We do. We're so glad you're here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. She actually served as co-host. She's been here with us many times before. She's Dr. Wanda. She is of Dr. Wanda's Therapy and Consulting Services. Everybody, welcome back to the show. Our girl, Dr. Wanda. Hey, hey,
Hey,
hey. What's happening?
good, good. I'm about to write a Christmas card for Tony right about now.
I love you already. We've only just met, and I love you already.
See there. Well, Dr. Wanda, it is always a pleasure to see you. Happy
Thank you.
holidays. You look
Happy holiday.
amazing. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Doctor, the last time you were on the show with us, you were telling us busiest time of the year. Well, this whole year has been just insanely
And
busy. Tony has been here as a co-host before, and he even said how insanely busy it is for mental health professionals, just all healthcare workers and first responders.
right.
How have you been and what's been going on, Doctor?
Wow. Yeah. So it has been really booming. I always I'm always a glass half full person. So even though we've been enduring this pandemic, I think that people have had to really kind of face their demons for some.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have had, of course, a lot more anxiety and depression. Some are suffering from it for the first time. But I think I've seen a lot of people who say that I've been wanting to get into therapy and never did, and felt like this was the time. And I can't tell you. I mean, I've heard that over and over again now in these last like 6 months of people saying, I said I always wanted to do it, but this was the time. So
Mm-hmm.
that part I'm glad about, that people are getting the mental health services that they need and support, because it is a time where people have been separated from their support systems. Those are usually the very things that have kept them going, that have kept them not bottoming out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've been isolated and separated from those very things that kept us going and kept us healthy, mentally
Mm-hmm.
healthy. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm blessed to have both of you on the show tonight because after your segment this evening, Tony's going to take us through all the steps of seeking mental health.
Okay.
A lot of
Like that.
people, they don't know what to do. They don't want to be labeled crazy. They are afraid of the medication, all of that. So we are just honored to have both of you here to just help us navigate through this process. Well, Dr. Wanda, a couple of people have sent messages to me to
Okay.
talk to you tonight to see how you can help. Tony, any advice you want to throw in, please feel free to do so. One young lady sent me a letter. She lost 3 family members this year, all of COVID. One being her brother, who actually left 3 children, a beautiful wife of 23 years. He had an amazing career, never drank, never smoked. She said the other was an aunt of hers, involved in the church, politically connected, all of that. And then she had a younger cousin in their late 20s to pass away from COVID. And all of these deaths were deaths that, didn't have anything to do with any other illnesses, anything like that. And she is just shattered this holiday season. What advice would you want to give her?
Wow. I mean, so nothing is going to be easy, and there's no quick fix for that. Then losing one person is a devastation, but to lose three, I mean, it's probably incomprehensible for her. So my condolence first and foremost to her. But I would say that she needs to seek out a support system if she doesn't have one. And then also to process her grief, that therapy would be a good avenue for that. Then, I mean, the grief is probably going to feel insurmountable, right? Because it was something that happened without warning, without expectation. And And I think that one of the things that we do sometimes is tell ourselves that we got to pick ourselves up and not go through that process of feeling depressed and missing those people. And sometimes other people will try and cheer us out. They mean well, and they'll tell us, you know what, you have to get some happiness and some joy. And I think that that is a detriment in some ways, because then people compartmentalize that grief instead of processing it through and working it through. I think the other piece too is that, being able, when she's ready, to think about the beautiful moments and really kind of the legacy, the impact that they had on her and the family. And then the other one is sometimes being able to give back to those other family members, the children that the relative left behind. How does she in some ways honor him by helping out the family that are going to be struggling, those children. Those are ways of being distracted by the trauma of losing so many people, but also doing something with that pain, almost like sowing some seeds back.
Yeah. And
Tony, yes, go ahead.
yeah, so what I tell people, and I love what you said, Dr. Wanda. What the way I make sense of it and what seems to help people is I remind them that the size of their grief is the size of their love for the person they lost. And sometimes people feel like they have to hang on to the grief, because if they let go of some of it, they would be disloyal to the person they loved. That it might be interpreted that they really didn't love them as much if they started to have fun again. So I try to encourage people to ask, what would your family member want you to do right now? How would they want you to behave in remembrance of them? And sometimes that helps, but it's a long path.
Mhm.
That kind of devastation. I've seen patients like this too. And, I think the other thing is to reassure people that, yeah, it's going to take a year. It's going to take a year, if not more. And there will be many steps along the way.
Very good. You both gave great advice. Oh my goodness. Dr. Wanda, are you ready for the next one?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, very good. So the next one is a husband. He's very worried and concerned. He lost his job. The wife lost her job. They've both been homeschooling the children. Thank goodness to the moratoriums where people cannot get evicted right now. Light and gas can't be turned off, things like that. But he is suffering so bad, being the breadwinner, always have been the breadwinner. The wife, was making a substantial income as well, too. And he is thinking thoughts of suicide. He's thinking thoughts of, just not sure what's next. And so, what advice would you want to offer him, Dr. Wanda?
Well, I say first and foremost, though, if he's having those thoughts, then our first concern is for him to get the help that he needs emergently, then, right? Because if he's not around, they won't have him for that support. This is a moment in time, and it's very, very rough, but it's not the end, right? We're not, a lot of people are resilient beyond this. But if he's having thoughts of wanting to hurt himself, he should really reach out either to the suicide hotline number, and I think you have that to put that up, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Or to go to emergent care to be evaluated, because we need him to be around so that we can get past this moment. Seeking therapy then to make sense of all of this then. On a macro level, I have to say this, then on a macro level, we need advocacy for people to have more stimulus checks. Then we need more supports for families that are struggling. But a lot of times families, even prior to COVID, were one check away from seeing devastation or really having hardships. And
Right.
so we live in a society where those macro changes have to happen. Advocacy, the people that we go and vote for need to actually do the job that we hire them to do, right? And make life a little bit more livable for people. As it relates to him and his wife, I know in having concerns about the financial stressors, the depression, and being the head of the household and feeling like maybe in some ways he's let someone down or disappointed them. This is also a time to reinvent yourself then. So maybe those jobs left and those opportunities did, but maybe it's an opportunity to learn something new then. If you wanted to go back to school, learn a trade. There are a lot of courses and educational systems that have created discounts on some of the training programs. Then maybe it's an opportunity to learn something new. I've seen people, and I think that if there ever was a time, it's now, where people have created businesses completely online with very little capital. So maybe it's an opportunity, if it's a desire and that was there, but we thought, okay, how could I do that? Well, this is probably the day and age where you can do it with very little capital needed. And so I think that while we have to grieve the loss of that financial stability and going through a very, very tough time during the pandemic, we have to regroup. And I always say pivot and shift, right? Or pivot and shift then to something that is bigger and better, and you can make it, right? I think that one of the things is that we have a lot more resiliency than I think that we give ourselves credit in. This is not going to take you out. If COVID didn't take you out, then you're still around to be able to reinvent, right, and find another door. And I think a lot of times our ancestors talk about when doors are shut, we grease up and we learn how to slide under it then, right? So we're not letting that stop us or be a barrier then. And I'm a believer in that then, right? And so sometimes we just need somebody to believe in us and give us some inspiration, right, for us to really take on that. And maybe we start out small, right? You know, you can advertise on social media for free, right? So it's an opportunity really to reinvent yourself, maybe to take up a trade that you had thought about but didn't want to and never really found the time. Go back to school, look into a different career that may be somewhat related to what you were doing, but not directly, but you never had thought about branching out in that way. So it may be the beginning of something beautiful instead of being the end of something beautiful.
Yes, I agree. Look, hallelujah. Pass the collection plate, Brother Tony. I'm going to let you add something to that as well, too, because you were saying that, Tony. Same thing she said in the beginning is what you were saying earlier.
Well, I can't steal her thunder. She's prettier and more intelligent and says it better than I did.
Well,
so I think the only things that I have to contribute that are different is one, just to remember that there are programs out there. So for instance, community colleges are a very good deal. And if you take 3 classes, you might be eligible for a Pell Grant. They have a lot of majors, including trades and computers and stuff like that. Olive Harvey had, I don't know if they still have it, something called Project Evolve, where they were training people for jobs. And, you know, it might not be for you at all, but you might know somebody who it is for, where they were training people to work in marijuana dispensaries, to drive forklifts, to work in aviation. And those programs, at least at the time, were fully funded. It didn't cost you anything. But amen. It's a moment in time. And after every disaster in history, hurricanes, earthquakes, plagues, wars, we rebuild.
I love the advice both of you are giving.
You know, I had a mentor too that would say that, you know, we never want to have a final solution for a temporary problem, right?
Yes.
So this is a temporary problem, and we won't always be in COVID. He won't always be unemployed and struggling. And so I think that we have to really be able to look towards the future then and not get stuck in where we're at right now. Then this is an opportunity to see where we want to go from here then.
Well, Dr. Wanda, the next question is kind of personal for myself. We were talking, some friends and I, about how the holiday has just changed. There's no more, you know, Michigan Avenue being packed and you going out and looking for that gift for someone, trying to catch the sales. Black Friday has all become virtual now. Everything comes to your door in a box. You know, I had a debate with somebody about the whole personal shoppers bringing me my groceries, all of this. And we were saying last night on the show, I said, oh my goodness, I just want us to get back to normal. And my co-host, who was a minister last night, said, Chat Daddy, keep in mind, we will never go back to normal. We now have got to learn about our new normal. What advice would you want to give to people who have been stuck in the house now 9 or 10 months? People who, you know, just this new way of life, it's going to take them a minute to adjust. By the way, they could be 80, 85, 75, older demographic, or just somebody who is just stuck in their ways. What advice would you give them?
Well, you know what? I think that what has the most impact now with people being kind of stuck in are those little things that mean a whole lot then, right? So those random acts of kindness to reach out to somebody, maybe sending something and giving them a gift or sending them a text that you love them. Being able to take those little self-care moments then, something that you enjoy doing. Those are the things that'll get us past and through this moment then. It's probably not the big bang stuff, right? Because a lot of the big bang stuff is not accessible right now, but it's those small things then. And I think, again, here's my half full glass again then. I think that at least during this time that people have really had to reflect on the things that really mean something to them, right? We know, and I'm not actually too tearful about Black Friday going virtual or people not being so commercial during this holiday time, because I think that what holidays really mean to me is not really Santa, right? It's family time and being grateful and thankful for the things that we do have. I think a lot of times we count up the things that we have, and then when we lose it, we count up the things that we've lost. But even in that loss, what about the things that you do still have then, right? So those people who have had COVID, but they recovered, that's an amazing blessing, right? Because there's so many people who haven't. And those people who haven't gotten it, then thank God you haven't gotten it. As difficult as it is to be in the house, then thank God, right? And those people that were able to make the switch from working in the office to working at home versus not having employment, then thank God you have that opportunity, right? Thankfully, your kids don't have to miss a beat with education because they've transition to e-learning, and there's still so much to be grateful and thankful for despite the things that we've lost. And I am not in any way minimizing that at all, or Christmas looking a lot different or holidays looking a lot different, but I think this is probably one of the times where I say, it's better to be conservative. I think I heard Tony say that, if you live another day, right, that uncle that thank God he'll still be around, right? And I say that really with some level of severity because, I have patients that I've seen that celebrated Thanksgiving and one of their relatives didn't make it through because of COVID, then, although 3 may have gotten COVID. So,
Mhm.
I mean, this is not the time for us to really kind of be willy-nilly about the safety that we need to have in place. And are there other ways virtually that you can connect with your family and the people that you love so that you're not putting them at risk or being at risk yourself then? What are ways to let the people know that you love them and you care about them? And you look forward to those moments when we go back to quote unquote normal and you can celebrate traditionally like you did before, right? Because I think it is important for you to be able to reach out and connect with the people that you love and let them know that, right? That's
Mhm.
also one thing that we've learned through this time then, that those things that we may have taken for granted, right? I mean, tissue. That's a small way, but we took tissue for granted. I don't think we'll ever do that again now. I'll never look at another roll the way I did before, right? It's very small things that we took for granted. I don't think we ever will again. And there's so much to be grateful for.
You know what? I couldn't agree with you more. I was out shopping today and there was a well-stocked aisle of toilet paper. I'm taking selfies with toilet paper. There was well-stocked wipes. They may not have been that brand. Everybody is so quick to, but there were, wipes and sanitizers. And I'm thinking to myself, Lord have mercy. Where we're hearing stories of people in California, there's no toilet paper, no bottled water because they're on lockdown again. So you're right. It's amazing. We are thankful now for something like toilet paper. Tony, what do you feel?
Dr. Wanda, you say things so beautifully.
Oh, well, thank you.
That was amazing. That
Thank
was,
you.
I just want to say how beautiful that was.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Very good. All right. Well, Tony, you have a question, anything you want to run by the doctor before we let her go tonight?
Yeah, so I'm wondering, I recently encountered somebody who was basically stuck at home, daily routine. And day after day after day, the same routine, nobody to talk to, and things started to go wrong. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about, how people express the distress they're feeling in their bodies, either with substances or pain or, hallucinations, depression. How do you help people through those things?
One of the most beautiful things to another, like, half full empty, half full glass, in this moment, is that therapy is so much more accessible right now in this moment through virtual, right? You don't have to leave your house then. You don't have to deal with the stigma of walking into a private practice office then. You literally, if you have a smartphone or internet connection, you can have a therapy session then. So that would be my recommendation. Those that are struggling through and don't really know how, that's one way. The other way then is that even if you don't have family systems or friends, some people have been separated from their family prior to COVID, right? They're in conflict, they don't have that closeness, they don't have any of those people. Great thing too is, through the internet, there's so many support groups. I often recommend for my patients that don't have support systems, family members, that they could actually access self-help groups then, right? So that means for depression, for anxiety, those that have suffered loss, grief groups, all of that you can access, as well as when we do see an increase in domestic violence through this COVID time, abuse, and substance use disorders. And so substance use groups, they're available online. You can do Al-Anon, Cocaine Anonymous, Alcohol Anonymous groups through the internet, right? Those that have loved ones that are suffering with substance use disorders can go through Codependence Anonymous and Al-Anon for themselves. So I think that it's a very good time to be able to access and reach out to those support groups if you don't have those support systems in place, or even if you do, right? Because all the support that you can get is the best. Seek out therapy. Then it's never been easier for you to have to do a session through the computer with nobody else knowing but you. And I think that it's a good time for people to really kind of search within them. Sometimes people had problems with depression and anxiety, but they felt like they could control it. And this COVID has kind of sent things spiraling so that they couldn't control. So am I going to be able to take away the COVID? No, but I can help you with gaining some coping mechanisms then, right?
Mhm.
And gaining some insight on your situation. And maybe there's things beyond COVID, right? Because that's what, I mean, COVID is here for a moment then, but maybe you're in a domestic violence situation and that's been going on for years, right? Or you haven't learned how to love yourself or be loved and allow people into your space. Then those things may have been happening pre-COVID, during COVID, and they'll happen post-COVID if you don't work on them. So that would be my admonishment. And this is a good time to work on and be well. And during COVID, it's a good time to be well.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100%, Doc. After a while, I said to my doctors, I said, is there any way possible I can do face to face? I want to get back out and be normal in this world. I want to have faith that we will get back to normal. But I do, that, Tony, that was an excellent question, because I know several people who have not set foot outside their homes since this pandemic has happened. And it makes me wonder as well, too. I mean, I can stay in here a few days, but I've got to get out and get air and people and everything,
I
Tony.
actually do it in between sessions. I'm stepping outside on the porch, or I'm looking outside, or I'm outside in the backyard there. And I think we have to have some level of air. And we had, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we had that like 2 week time where we didn't see a lot of sun. A lot of people were having a lot more depression during that, and they were fatigued and tired, right? That makes a big difference. For me, it's a good day if you see it in the sun, and for a lot of people. And so, and we have to experience that then, we
Right.
need to go out, step outside and get some fresh air, take a little walk then. You don't have to go anywhere tremendously. I know family members that their family activity is getting in the car, turning on some music, and maybe going through a drive-through, right? Get yourself out of the house then. You don't have to go anywhere significantly. You don't have to dress up great, but just get out and get some air and get away from home so that you don't feel like a prisoner. That's the difference, right? A prisoner can't leave, but you can, right?
Yeah, you can. Mr. Tony.
Well, you know, I'd like to say something a little provocative here, that this is the natural evolution of us thinking that because we had telephones, we could move far away from our families. You know, when and live in buildings where we don't know our neighbors. You know, for years I lived in buildings where I had no idea who lived around me. And then I moved out to the suburbs and I lived in a lovely residential community. And all of a sudden I knew everybody within a few blocks because we stopped, we talked, we had dogs. Dogs are a great social way to communicate with others. But, you know, the increasing trend through communicating through Facebook and Instagram and all the rest, yes, there's some amazing opportunities, but we see what the consequence is if we become a society that lives on social media and stops having human contact. So I hope that people will choose to use this tool for now and remember what it was like, so that when it's over, get off the social media, because it is really, we're starting to see it's a really destructive force. I mean, you know, lies get told on it, racial hatreds get inflamed on it. You know, when I finally got off Facebook because when I disagreed with somebody, I became a very ugly person I didn't like, you know, because they weren't there in front of me. If they had been in front of me, I would have behaved differently. So I encourage you all, yes, use the tools now. It's a blessing we have them. I can't imagine what this would be like if we didn't have them. But remember, this is what life will be like if we live only on technology, if we only live in our homes, if we stop having community. What do you think about that, Dr. Wanda?
I like that you said that. I think that there's definitely some truth. I kind of look at it as a mixed blessing then, right? It's the very thing that'll help us survive right now then, right? So we need it. But you're right. I mean, I think that we always have to remember on the other end of that technology is a person, right? So none of this works if it were people then. If it were just technology, it wouldn't work, right? But there are people on the other end that we need to value building relationships, and not superficial ones that we may have on social media, but actually taking the time to get to know that person, and accepting that person for who they are, and wanting people to accept us for who we are. Then it's really those connections that you talk about, those personal human connections, that are the things that are going to save us now. Technology is just a mode, right? But it's those human relationships that will help us to get through this, whether it be self-help meeting, family members, friends. And I like that you mentioned about pets, because pets are another way of having some level of companionship and dealing with isolation and loneliness too.
I'm wondering, Chat Daddy and Dr. Wanda, I don't know how our time is running, but one of our listeners asked the question about, what do you think about starting a love affair in this time?
I think it's a great thing.
That's
I do. I
I
am a big component of, and proponent and fan of people looking at dating virtually right now. I think it slows down the process then. People aren't going to be jumping physical, that you'll take the time to actually get to know somebody virtually. So I like that idea then. I think being able to take that time and slow it down, because I feel like we live in a popcorn society. Everybody wants everything quick, and I'm responsible too. I mean, I'm guilty of it, right? You go through a fast food place, and if they don't give your stuff in 5 minutes, you're upset, right? Like 5 minutes is enough time, right? So we live on that popcorn society. And I think one of the things that COVID has done is slowed us down then, right? Everything is not moving fast. And that's a great time for you to slow down and get to know somebody virtually, and then build up to the physical. So I think it's a great time. It's a great time.
I really do. Yes. Go ahead, Tony.
Can I be devil's advocate again?
Yes.
You know, I'm such a happy guy. How come I'm the curmudgeon here? But you know, I have a concern, Dr. Wanda.
Okay, let's hear it.
One is we are so hungry for relationships that I think sometimes will overlook red flags. And that's not just true in the time of COVID. I think when people are really, really lonely, they ignore signs that are bad. And the second thing is, I do think it's really hard to know somebody, you know, and really form an attachment if you can't see what their apartment looks like and what books and records they have on their shelf.
I see it right now. And I like your kitchen, by the way.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. It looks very comfortable and yeah, all of that. Right. Yes.
But
But
that's
but
what I'm hoping that they will talk about then. What are the things that you're interested in? If you love reading, what are some of the things that you do for reading then? What are some of the things that captivate you? What do you watch on TV? I love Law and Order. I think this is an opportunity to slow that down. But I think people don't realize that when you meet somebody in person, let's take the internet and social media off of the table. And when you meet somebody in person, you're only going to get what people give you, no
Mm.
matter whether it's virtually or in person. Then what they want to reveal to you, they will. If I'm seeing you on video conference or video session as a date, I'm going to be seeing your facial expressions when I ask questions.
it's
I'm
true.
going to be seeing you in your environment, and I can't do that if we're sitting in a restaurant, Bonefish Grill. That's one of my favorite places for brunch, by the way, but not during COVID. And so I can't see how you live your life, what you have in your background, how you handle yourself in your comfort zone, man. I can peek into that. That's one of the things that I love about doing therapy through video is that I get to see children in their natural environment, see people in the natural environment. People I didn't even know smoke that were patients of mine. You don't mind if I light up while during our session? No, of course not. I didn't even know that you smoke, right?
Right.
Being able to see, some of my patients saying, well, this is where I like to go for some level of serenity in their backyard and being able to. So I guess, I think it's a great opportunity to see people in different environments. It's very staged when you go out to eat with someone, but it's not staged when they're sitting in their house and you're sitting in yours.
Well, now I'm going to tell you guys something really funny. I just had this conversation with somebody else. If you're single and was dating a couple of people before this pandemic started, and you had the people that were we're all adults here that continue to want to have the booty calls during this pandemic, still want to come over, still want to have sex. If you're one of those people that's fearful, not wanting to have a booty call, really want you to have a COVID test, HIV, STDs, all of that. This now was a time to figure out who was still going to remain that booty call versus who is serious about saving their life and doing the right thing. And I think from this point on, this will even change the way people deal with people in relationships. You'll find your tribe. You'll find who is reckless with sex and their behavior versus who is serious about living life. Do you both agree or disagree?
I think that's a good point, because you're right. It's if you were in the process of dating somebody and then COVID hit and you guys had to put a halt, or you were dating somebody and you hadn't gotten physical yet and you were reluctant to do so, you'll get to know if that person was really interested in more than just wanting to have that interaction with you sexually. So I think that's a good point. I guess the other thing is that you can have virtual sex too. I'm just throwing that out there, but I'm just saying. But I think I want to gloss over a point that Tony made, because I do think that there are people who are afraid just to be alone with themselves. And so I don't want to gloss over the fact that maybe this is a good time for you to really do a relationship detox. Yeah. And be able to spend some time with yourself and be okay with that and really work on yourself so that especially if you have some questionable choices in the partners that you choose, then, right, this is a good time for you really to focus yourself, to learn to love yourself and really kind of be at a place where you'll be at a healthier place when it goes back to dating again. So.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen this before. I mean, we saw this in the AIDS epidemic, right? We saw people become afraid to have sex, and and there were all of these complicated negotiations around safety. So I think one of the things, am I wrong, Chat Daddy, that many of your listeners are women?
Oh no, it's a very diverse audience. Men, women, gay, straight. So no, I mean, but predominantly it would be women. Yes.
Okay, so I think the one thing that I would, as part of this, looking at what's important to you, is this is also a good time to look at what means consent to you. That if you are afraid and you don't want to do it, what does it mean if you're not really giving consent, but you're allowing it to happen anyway? And I think this is true of men and women. People are afraid that they'll lose the moment, it'll never come back. And so I think that it's so important that people are able to say what they feel, set their boundaries, stick with their boundaries, because I think the last thing anybody wants is to walk away from a sexual encounter being afraid and feeling remorseful, right? It should be joyous. So anyway, I love everything that we're talking about so far. I think this is wonderful. But the thing that I think about when I'm talking about relationships with people is I sort of think of us as human beings fit in kind of a puzzle. We fit together as interlocking pieces. So if you've had things happen in your life or you date another person who has had things happen in their life, maybe abuse, maybe alcoholism, things like that. So if they start to become a twisted piece, the only way you can stay with them is for you to become a twisted piece. Now, even when that other person leaves, guess what? You are now in this shape, and all that will fit is another person with problems. So this idea of unwrapping yourself, as Dr. Wanda said, loving yourself, becoming this healthy, open puzzle piece, invites other people who are healthy, open, reciprocal beings.
That's an awesome analogy. I like that.
I do too. That's beautiful. Debbie Green says she's excited to go to a hotel with some champagne, some Harold's chicken, and some good conversation. And I'm with her. I am so with her. I'm not opposed from Netflix and chill or any of that. Tony will have to get you some good rib tips from Uncle Jay's and some Dat donuts. But
now I want to try the donuts.
They're amazing. They're amazing. Look, the next time I have you two on, I'll be a great host, and maybe we'll have food from them that night. And yeah, they do. They have great donuts. Well, Dr. Parker, in closing, Dr. Wanda, what would you like to tell everybody and say and tell us how we can? Oh, Debbie is so cute. She said, "Yeah, I'm 64. I love it." Debbie, that's all right. Just long as look, love never dies. Tell them, Dr. Wanda, you love as long as you live.
That's right. Get your groove on, Debbie.
Yeah.
But safely.
Yes, that's right.
I guess I would say it has to be self-care. We have to be able to take care of ourselves. And I think, we've been conditioned a lot of times, whether you're in the helping field or women, in a big way, to take care of other people. And then if there's some space or room or time left, then you get that then. And I think that we have to really kind of flip that around then. You have to prioritize you, because then you do a much better job taking care of other people then. And it doesn't have to be something big and extravagant. It can be a nice bath with some jazz music and a scented candle, watching a movie that is a feel-good movie for you, reading a book. Start journal writing and really kind of challenging yourself to talk about your feelings. If you can't do it with people, maybe you can start by writing them and then work your way up to talking about your feelings with the people that you love or that are closer to you. This is an opportunity for you really to do some work, to get that degree on yourself and be an expert on yourself and learn to love yourself. Because if you love yourself the way you need to be loved, then you won't allow somebody to come into your life to love you less than that. That is my admonishment to you. And again, of course, I'm a big proponent of therapy. So this is an opportunity to access therapy in a way that you haven't before. So do that. Reach out to the people that you love and try and take those relationships to another level then. If you had a family where they didn't talk about their feelings, you never tell each other that you love each other, then maybe it's an opportunity to do that now. Maybe you're the groundbreaker in that family to teach and show people how to love. So I think it's an opportunity for us really to kind of reinvent ourselves, our relationships, and our worlds.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Tony, by the look on your face, it made good sense too. Tony, anything you want to say to Dr. Wanda in closing tonight, my friend?
Can we do this again?
I love that. It was fun.
Yes. I was hoping this night would work. I keep in mind, people, I have to create these shows, and I knew this would be love. I knew this would be the most perfect marriage on this here internet. I knew it would be.
Tony. Really good vibe.
I said that. I knew it would be a good connection. Tony, what do you want to say to Dr. Wanda in closing?
Um, wow. I I was going to speak about this, but I think it's more appropriate that you speak about it, and I'll talk about medication. Two things that I think we both have to address. One is people are so afraid of the mental health system. I had a patient recently just tell me, well, I don't want to be a psych patient because psych people are crazy. And I said, well, what does that mean to you? They hallucinate. They're in rubber brooms. They're, so what do you say to people like that?
And that's come up a lot. I have some newer patients that people who said that they wanted to seek therapy, but they had some shame about it, right? And so that's what prevented them for so long from seeking it. But then they had really kind of thought about it and thought, well, okay, if I'm trying to be better and the best person that I can be, then what's my route? How do I do that then? How do I work through some things that were traumatic that happened in my life that I may have never told anybody, right? Because of the shame and guilt that comes along with it. Then this is your opportunity to get free. Then, so it's not about being crazy. Then, those that are not really not stable and that are a harm to themselves or to someone else end up in the hospital. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a place for you to be able to process out a failed relationship or a string of failed relationships. Why you never felt close to your family members. Um, what do you seem to be doing as far as your friendships and relationships that somehow puts up a wall and prevents you from really feeling close and them feeling close to you and really having the benefits of intimacy? How do you work on that depression and anxiety that you've kept at bay, but COVID has kind of exacerbated and made worse during this time? Those are opportunities for you to work on yourself, right? People go to the gym all the time, and there's no shame about that, right? But no, I think that we have to kind of reinvent what mental health is then. Seeking therapy is not someone who is crazy, it's someone who is working out problems then. So many times we compartmentalize. We push it to the back or push it down until there's no room and it starts to leak out then, right? In our relationships, even in our professional relationships, in our interactions with people. It's an opportunity for you to get well. It's not about being crazy, it's about getting well. And I think that we have to rename it in that way then, right? Not say that it's something wrong with you. It's about you wanting to be the best person that you can be and to heal from all of that stuff that you're carrying around. Then it's an opportunity to do that. That's refreshing and that's beautiful. Then nobody is ashamed to go to a doctor's office to have an appointment to make sure they check up on their physical health. And so you have to be just as vigilant as it relates to your mental health, then, for you
Oh,
and for your family.
oh, I love it. I do. Well, doctor, tell everybody how they can find you, follow you, reach you, all of that. I have a million questions for Tony for our next segment that I think he'll be able to continue this
Mhm.
dialogue on and help us out. Happy holidays again. Tell everybody how they can reach
Thank
you, doctor.
you. So on Facebook, you can reach me at Dr. Wanda Therapy and Consultant, or you can reach me on my website at Dr. Wanda Therapy and Consultant Services.com. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I love you so much,
Nice
doctor.
seeing you,
Take care
Tony.
of yourself.
Take
And
care.
we're going to have date night again. I promise you that. Me,
All
you,
right.
and Tony, date night. We'll do more mental health
Sounds
shows.
good.
All right. We love you.
Take
Thank you
care.
so much, doctor. Have a great night. All right, Tony, we did it. We did it, man. I love it. How are you feeling behind all of this, Tony?
Awestruck. It's really lovely when you get to work alongside somebody who is so smart and so filled with heart and soul and really marries those things together wonderfully. And I think there was one other thing that I wanted to bring up about therapy before there just a couple more things that I like to tell people because people ask me, how do I pick a good therapist? What
Right,
if I don't feel like it's right?
right.
So I think that here are a couple things I like to tell people. The first is that there are genuinely different schools of thought about how to approach therapy. Some ways people approach it are very directive. I tend to be pretty directive. Because if I'm going to see somebody, I don't want them to sit back and take notes and go, what do you think?
Mhm.
I want their opinion.
Mhm.
But some people don't really want to be directed. They want the help in figuring it out themselves, and they've had people tell them what to do their entire lives.
Mhm.
So the thing to do is that most people who do therapy have a variety of styles they can choose from. And the thing that's wonderful about therapy is that it's like a magic place where you get to try out new relationships with people, you
Mhm.
know, where you get to say what's going on with you. Just like when I'm either doing therapy or I'm doing psychiatric med management, you know, our goal, our higher vision in this is to help you achieve what you love, who you want to be. That's what we're here to do, not
Mhm.
just to make you stop hurting, but to become something amazing. So, this is the magic place where you get to say what you want out of a relationship. You might never have been able to say to somebody because you were too afraid to, you know, what you're doing is pissing me off. And what I would really like out of this is, or, wondering how you can say, I feel very hurt when that goes on. Can we find a different way to do this? And you
Mhm.
can say that to your therapist, because the way we are in therapy and in groups, by the way, is the way we are in the world. So if you want to be different in the world, you try it out there. You try it out in therapy. You try it out with me if I'm managing your medicines. That's really what it's here for.
Mhm.
So, what is the difference between using therapy and medications, right? And
Right.
by the way, for your listeners out there, I would like you to think of any questions you have about medications, about severe illness and the treatment of severe illness.
Mhm.
Almost everybody has somebody in their family who they love, or it might be themselves who's
Mhm.
been through something. I went through years with major depression. If you have any
Mhm.
questions, I'd like to hear them, and I'd like to be able to help you with them.
Well, actually, Tony, real quick, somebody did text me, a gentleman, antidepressants, and is worried about erectional issues. And then, start taking the medicine, the erectional issues develop, and now on medicine to help the erection issues. So he feels as if he's on a decline because of the amount of medicine now he's taking that he didn't have to take before. Any advice on that?
Can we park that for 1 second?
Okay. Yep.
I'd like to make a larger point, and then we'll come
Okay.
back to it.
Okay, beautiful. Go right ahead.
So the larger point that I'd like to make, and I promise we'll get back to that. The thing about our nervous system is it develops according to the stressors in our environment, and it develops according to the thoughts we have, and it develops according to the genes we have, and it develops sometimes just badly, for all of those reasons. And so the purpose, ultimately, what we have to do is change our thoughts and our emotions and our response to them, how we make meaning of the world. That if somebody walks past us and doesn't say anything to us, it might have nothing to do with us, but we assume that they hate us, right?
Right.
It's that kind of thing. So, what I liken it to is everybody here has seen a garden or a Chicago park. And during the spring, everything's lush, everything's growing like crazy. There's sunshine, there's rain. But then in August, it hasn't rained, the sun is beating down. And when we look at pictures of our nervous system, they look like this garden or more like a jungle. When they're healthy, there's vines everywhere, there's leaves everywhere, there's roots everywhere, where they look like trees, right? Interlaced like a rainforest. And
Mhm.
after we've been through a period of depression, you look at those pictures and now they look like that garden in August. Leaves have fallen, right? Roots, there are fewer roots, there are fewer branches. So, and sometimes what happens is we get to the point where the feelings are so overwhelming that we're paralyzed from taking those next steps to change those thoughts, to change those meanings, to change our relationship, to be present with our children and our spouses and our jobs. So when the illness isn't really the right word, distress, when the distress is so severe, then this is where medication comes in. And what I say to people is, so you go into your garden in August and you now provide water and fertilizer to it. Does everything spring back right away? No, it takes a while. It takes weeks. It takes a combination of things. Might be water, might be you have to give it nitrogen, might be that you have to put down compost. There may be multiple ways to bring your garden back, but it takes time. And then when you're successful at doing this, what grows back? Everything grows back, including the weeds. So the process of medication is bringing the garden back. Psychotherapy is learning to weed the garden and train the plants so you get the roses you want and the tomatoes you want and so on, and not a bunch of weeds and not a bunch of vines everywhere. So that's really kind of the difference. So medication is indicated for people who have really severe distress. So antidepressants are really only for mild or moderate depression. I'm sorry, psychotherapy is the first line for mild or moderate depression. Mm-hmm. Antidepressants are really for moderate to severe depression or extremely severe depression, right? We use treatment for bipolar disorder because in bipolar disorder, you not only have periods of being depressed, but you feel great, so great that you're out there doing all kinds of stuff like a tornado, destroying your life everywhere around you, and you don't see it because you feel great, right? And when somebody tries to tell you there's something wrong, how could there be something wrong? I feel great. You want me to be depressed all the time? I feel great, right? You know, with schizophrenia, people want all of the things, the same things you and I want. They want good families. They want love. They want relationships. And they don't understand why these voices are torturing them, saying that they can't trust anybody, saying that they're terrible people, sometimes saying that they deserve to die. And you can't get the voices out of your head, you know? So these are the things that I work with people on. I work with profound PTSD, right? People who've had terrible reactions to trauma. Remember, most people get through trauma in about a year without any help. The human race wouldn't have survived. But some people get PTSD, and that's really terrible. And they need the help to move forward. So let's go back to your question now about medications. Mm-hmm. People seem incredibly married to the idea that they only want one medication and that's it. And I meet people all the time who say, I don't even take aspirin when I have a headache. I don't take pills. So you have to remember that we're dealing here with something that for thousands of years people have tried to describe and quantify. We're dealing with the romantic heart. We're dealing with the mind. We're dealing with the spirit. We're dealing with the actual workings of the brain and the nervous system. And if we come back to the mind, where is your mind? Well, I can point to my brain, but my mind is everywhere in my body because everything in your body is intelligent. Everything. The blood vessels are not pipes. The blood vessels know where to send the blood, right? The muscles know what to do, you know? So we're trying to adjust an entire system. And sometimes it takes several tries because humans are very complicated. It's not like adjusting the heart. The heart is essentially a pump, right? We're trying to adjust the whole system and the brain, which is the most complicated of all. And sometimes it takes several different medicines going to several different systems, right? So many people, for instance, need more than one blood pressure medicine. Blood pressure medicines only reduce your blood pressure by so much. Diet and exercise only reduce by so much. If you have bad blood pressure, because that's just you know, at age 45, I inherited my father's blood pressure all of a sudden. Thanks, Dad. You know, right. I had perfect blood pressure. You could take it to the bank. For 45 years, all of a sudden I've had blood pressure, right? So many times people are on 2 or 3 agents if they have severe blood pressure. So if you have a really severe mental condition going on, we might use 2 or 3 agents. Sometimes we use faster acting agents to get you relief right away. So if, for instance, you haven't slept for days because you're so anxious you can't stand it, then my first job is to get you to sleep, right? We'll clean up the anxiety as we go. But my first job is to get you to sleep. If you haven't been eating and you're starving, exhausted and hungry people rarely have a good mood. They rarely deal with the world well. So, Chat Daddy, tell me that question again.
He was prescribed antidepressant medicine, and it has caused erectile dysfunction issues. And now the doctor has prescribed the erectile dysfunction medicine, and he's upset because he's one of those people that has never ever taken any, like you said, not even an aspirin or a Tylenol. And now, you know, Mr. Joy and Happiness won't respond anymore unless he takes medicine for Mr. Joy and Happiness to respond. And so he's dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression because of that. And I think that's where a lot of men, I know black men, my brothers, black and brown, don't want to take the medicine because it will take away the satisfaction that they love and adore. And a lot of men feel that's all they have left is that.
Right. So by the way, it happens to Caucasian men and Asian men too.
Okay.
So and by the way, it happens to women.
Right? Yes.
So first of all, there are a few medications that do not cause sexual side effects, right? There is one very old school med that does, but not everybody can tolerate it. You know, I know some people who take it, it makes them much more anxious, right? The other two meds are branded medications. It's hard to get insurances to pay for them because they are so expensive versus the old drugs that are very, very cheap. I mean, you could buy them. By the way, if y'all don't know, there's a website called goodrx.com. And if you have a medicine that you can't afford to pay for, look at the price. You know, your insurance doesn't cover it. I gave one of my schizophrenic patients a perfectly common medicine that on GoodRx cost $30, and at the pharmacy they tried to charge her something like $1,100. You know, so there's a lot of games in the pricing and in the insurance. So, so here's the deal with the antidepressants. We are still trying to perfect this. As I said, we're trying to adjust the most complicated systems in the body, right? That's it. GoodRx. Get to know it, folks. Save you a lot of money. Admittedly, a lot of the drugs we have still have some side effects. It's true. But the risk-benefit analysis is how miserable were you before? And for how many years were you miserable? Right? If the only thing you felt good in is when you were having sex because that was the only time you felt a connection to somebody, how miserable is it to be disconnected from everybody? You know, because that's what depression feels like for a lot of people. You're in a room all by yourself and you know there's a world of people out there, but you can't touch them. You can't connect to them. Things that should be making you happy don't make you happy. You're still sad or you feel nothing, right? So the risk-benefit analysis is that, you know, and everybody, I hope everybody understands what I'm saying is when you compare the potential side effect to the potential benefit, what is it worth being present to your spouse again? What is it worth to stop feeling like you want to cry all the time, you know? And you know, so then the question is, if we can relatively easily restore your sexual ability, why not? Why not do it? You know, it's an imperfect solution, but there are many areas in medicine where we get you part of the way with one procedure or one medicine, and then we have to go the other way to fix what's left. You know, so this is not just antidepressants. I understand. I work with a lot of people who say to me, "Oh man, I can't do this." But I also work with a lot of people who say, my life is so miserable, I can't do that. Other questions?
Very good. Well, no, so far, everybody, I'm gonna put that the prescription back. We did get we even got a comment that said this should be a master class, Tony. My audience loves to listen. You did an outstanding job with explaining that. What else do we need to know?
So I think the most important thing when you're working with somebody is I want you to dream bigger, right? Because usually people don't present for a psychiatric condition until it's gone on for years and really bad things have happened. You know, for instance, if you're somebody who hears voices, you know, you've probably learned already pretty clearly that if you say to somebody you're hearing voices, they're going to freak out, right? So you learn not to talk about it, right? If you have these dark thoughts that you don't know how to deal with, where you're just miserable, or you have terrors, you know, you get panic attacks where you just can't function. You're so anxious, you can't stand what other people are thinking about you. And you've tried and you've tried and you've tried. So I want you to do is two things. I want you to come with the hurt you want us to help fix. But I want you to start thinking about what is life if you could be happy? Mm-hmm. What is life if you could not be terrified? Mm-hmm. What do you dream of doing that you can't do now? Because that's really my job, is to get you there. Mm-hmm. And you know, medications have side effects. If you read the side effect list on Tylenol, you'd run screaming for the hills.
Yes,
right?
Yep.
You know, you, which is why you can't trust Dr. Google, right? Because Dr. Google will tell you everything, whether it's true or not, whether it's meaningful or not. You need somebody to help sift that through with you and figure out what matters and what matters for you. You know, if you've been self-medicating with alcohol, that has real consequences. Right? Speaking of something that takes away your sexual function, but also what it does to your life. And if you want intimacy, using a drug does not make you intimate. It keeps you away from other people because you're now functioning through the mask of intoxication. You know, people who are very, very depressed, or sometimes if they're hearing voices, this is really a problem. People who have either bipolar or schizophrenia, especially schizophrenia, when the voices are first coming on, and we notice this in teenagers, they start isolating, they won't come out of the room, they're smoking a bunch of pot, they're not real responsive to anything anymore. And why are they smoking the pot? They're smoking the pot to calm themselves about what's happening. The problem is marijuana, which has many medicinal uses, and I have no objection to it being part of a treatment plan. Marijuana can bring on hallucinations much, much faster and harder. You know, I had one young man I was treating, and he started smoking pot again, and he came in to see me, and this was a different person. You know, he thought I was inhabited by Satan. He thought he was like completely off the rails because the marijuana took him right back to that place. So again, that's why we don't use Dr. Google. That's why we do.
All right. Well, with that being said, I want to remind you guys that tomorrow is my Friday, coming up on the Thursday night edition of the Real Chat Daddy Show. Kay Renee will be back tomorrow night. She was supposed to join us on this show tonight, but she actually is in the middle of a project. So she was not with us tonight, but she will be back tomorrow evening. As you guys all know, it is Relationship Thursday. So we're going to talk about dating tips and how to do romance with COVID-19 in place. How do you, we kind of talked about this earlier, Tony, when the young lady said she had met somebody new. So we're trying to encourage people to get back to normal. We're trying to encourage people to keep their hopes up, all of that great stuff. So tomorrow night, we'll talk about that. And then I'm going to introduce you guys to a very special young man. As you guys all know, here on the show during the month of December, we're trying to promote as many Black independently owned small businesses as possible. This young man is a DJ, and he actually has lost his income because he cannot go and do parties out in public. He's been doing some things online, but when I introduce you to this special young man tomorrow night, I want you guys to bless his Cash App. He's really incredible. You're going to love him. And that's all I'm going to say. And he'll be here with us tomorrow night. He's super excited about being here. I had the honor and pleasure of doing a back to school event, and he was the DJ. And I was so blown away by this young man. I want the world to know who he is. That's how incredible he is. All right. So make sure you join us tomorrow night for the Thursday night edition of the Real Chat Daddy Show, Relationship Thursday. We're trying to help you guys get back into the relationship swing of things. And then you're going to meet an extraordinary young man who is a DJ, and you're going to want to bless him this holiday season by making it rain in his Cash App. Tony, you know what make it rain mean, Tony? Do you know what that means?
I do. Hey, can I leave our listeners with a valuable resource if they're trying to find someone?
We're not done yet. I just had to do the promo for tomorrow before I forgot. We're not done, my friend. I'm coming back to you now. Yes. So let what's our next step we need to know, and let's leave these valuable resources.
Okay. So, excuse me.
That's all right. Might have to do like I do, a little water.
Right. Don't worry, folks. I had COVID already. So I got my vaccine the hard way. You all are just going to have to get one shot at a second shot a month apart. But
hey, Tony, real quick, this is a cute little question that somebody posed to us. Do therapists get help also? Like, do therapists go for help?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure. And in fact, for many of our professions, it's strongly recommended. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is that we spend all day soaking up your feelings. And we have feelings about what's happening too. And so what we need to do is spend time keeping our stuff clean and clear so that when you come in, that your stuff gets to be your stuff and that we are fully present for you. So, because we see some really sad things. Mm-hmm. And, we see many joyful things. There's nothing better than watching somebody get better. Mm-hmm. It is just a thrill beyond measure. Mm-hmm. So that is actually a terrific question. So yes, many of us do. So we can keep ourselves clean and clear for you.
I love it. That's so beautiful. That should be a Christmas card, Tony. That's beautiful. We keep ourselves clean and clear for you. I love that. That's beautiful. What else?
Or it's a dry cleaning slogan or something.
That is true. That is a car wash slogan. That is nice. What else we need to know, my friend?
So I want to give your listeners a couple of resources to think about.
Okay.
Because finding somebody, if you don't know where to start, is kind of difficult. So I should have given this to you before Chat Daddy to post, but I'm wondering if we could improvise for a moment.
We sure can.
There's a website called Psychology Today.
Okay.
And it has Psychology Today for therapists, Psychology Today for therapists, and there are several other categories that they do. So what happens is you go on this website and you can select down who you want. You can enter your insurance. That's usually a great place to start because the matter of payment will often determine who your selection is. Then you can enter your zip code and find out who's closest to you. If you want a man or woman, you could do that. If you want somebody who's interested in trauma issues or depression issues or grief issues or eating disorders, you can choose that too and narrow the field down. And from there, you can start calling people, right? Mm-hmm. So psychologytoday.com, and you're looking, and so if you type it in your browser, it's Psychology Today, find a therapist, or Psychology Today, find a psychiatrist, right? And psychiatrists list various kinds of healthcare providers, and there isn't really a good word that includes psychiatric nurse practitioners, but we're there too. Mm-hmm. So that's one way to do it. Another good resource is, a lot of people have lost their health insurance with the economic disaster that we've had. So there are a number of organizations that are designed to provide healthcare to people who are in strapped financial shape, and they provide counseling. So some organizations I'm aware of, Access Community Health They have behavioral health, that's what a lot of these places call it, is behavioral health at a number of their sites. And so access is scattered all through the city, suburbs, south side, west side, up into the north. So they've got a lot of locations. Another place to look at if people are on the south side is, I'm not going to get the name right, Rosedale Christian on, I want to say Halstead and 95th Street, maybe 98th Street.
Yep.
Something like that. They offer services in Metropolitan Family Services has services available down towards South Chicago and more towards Hedwich. They have a lot of locations as well. So, there are opportunities there. There might be a waiting list. It's true. Right now, we're all very crowded because people need help. And as Dr. Wanda said, people who might have been just skating along and holding themselves together. And I've had many patients who were doing pretty well for the first couple of months of the lockdown, and then they just couldn't hold it together anymore. And thank God they came for help. And thank God they stayed in care and didn't drop out of care. It's really something. I'm trying to think who else I've done. The University of Illinois.
Yes.
Miles Square Family Center. They have a couple of different locations, south side, west side, and at the main campus. Mount Sinai on the west side used to have a thing where you could get an intake appointment that day, and they would figure out what you needed. Getting a therapist appointment didn't take as long, but if you needed psychiatry, medication management, that took a lot longer. So those are some options for you. As I said, and Psychology Today lists people who take Medicare and Medicaid. They're hard to find because honestly, they don't pay enough. One of the things that happened is I worked in a clinic that mostly served people on public insurances. And to keep the lights on, we had to see as many people an hour as we could, which is not the kind of care anybody really wants. But we still managed to do very good work.
Tony, we also want to give my good friends over at Near North Health a shout out as well, too. They do a lot of great work in the community. They have a location on the south side, northwest, Near North Health. They have behavior health as well, too. A lot of great organizations that are trying to help our community to heal, but I don't think there's enough available options for people. I think people need more love and support and guidance, and they're probably limited, as you said, trying to keep the lights on.
Right. So all of the universities, by the way, pretty much have healthcare services. So Northwestern, the wait for therapy at Northwestern is very long. University of Chicago has stuff. We already mentioned the University of Illinois. Loyola has stuff. DePaul has stuff. These are all places worth taking a look into. So what else do we need to cover tonight? Dear listeners, what do you need to know that we haven't covered yet?
I think we've covered it all, brother. They are quiet. They've not said anything. I've not gotten another text. This has been a masterclass. Booker T said this was a masterclass. Tony, you're just so full of energy that I need to break these down into bits and pieces. Nope, everybody seems to be good, but Booker T definitely said this is a masterclass, so you ought to feel proud, sir. You ought to feel very well. You and Dr. Wanda did a great job. What do you have planned for the rest of the year? How do you relax? What's relaxation for you?
So actually, I'm going on vacation. And after several different attempts to plan to go somewhere, anywhere, all of them got shot out from under us.
Oh, no.
So we are going to have a fabulous time at home in Chicago and just rest and music and movies. And by the way, folks, stop watching the news too much. They repeat everything over and over again, and it's usually depressing.
They sure do.
Go watch movies that make you laugh.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
The other thing that I would say is if you are angry about what has happened, right? There are two ways to channel your anger. Anger can be channeled destructively. You can use it against your family. You can use it against your dog. You can use it destructively. And that's the anger we're all afraid of. But you can use your anger also to power action. You know, you can get together with your block club and get out in the community and clean up the neighborhood.
Yes.
You can go visit local businesses and thank them and support them. Speaking of making rain, you know,
Right.
you can, you know, tell them how much you appreciate them because they're suffering. You know, you can call your elected officials and let them know they need to keep mental health front and center.
Yes.
Because every budget is getting cut right now. And if people don't speak up for mental health, it's the first thing that gets cut.
Mm-mm. Wow.
So, you know, get involved with your elected officials. If they have task forces, ask them if they can point you so that you can do something. In this holiday season, we may not be able to give gifts, but we could sure give each other. And there's a million ways to do that, you know? And so I think those are the best gifts of all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you know that you've helped somebody else who's having a hard time,
Yes.
there's nothing better. So
No.
use your anger to do good.
Yes, I love it, Tony. I do. Really, you've done a master class. Well, for those that can afford Tony's services, he does. Mr. Alan Amberg has a wonderful new service. And do me a favor, tell everybody how they can find you, connect, reach, all of that great stuff.
Yeah, so it's alanTonyAmberg.com, or you can find me on Psychology Today. And as I said, you know, it's a practice that is for cash, and the reason for that is that I really like to take care of people and spend time with them, and that's hard to do in an insurance environment. So it's not that I don't love people, because I love people, but I don't love spending 8 or 10 minutes at a time with them, because I can do more to help you if we have time. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's Amberg with a G on the end. Alan Tony Amberg.
You know what? I thought I put that there. My apologies. Hold on. See, okay. I had it going really good. You're right. It is with a G. There you go. Yes, sir.
Can I tell you what a blessing it is to be with you, Chat Daddy? I used to be in radio, and this feels so much like home.
I appreciate you, Tony. I do. Everybody's loving you, Tony. They said, thank you so much, Tony. You're amazing. I want you to have a beautiful vacation. And January is right around the corner, brother. So you need to look at that calendar and tell me what evening you'd like to spend with us again. I'll make sure Dr. Wanda, and I even have some other beautiful people who I think would play well in this group. And we're going to try to save as many people as we can in 2021. Don't you agree? I think that's what our mission should be, is to save our brothers and sisters in 2021.
And the most important thing we can save for you is your dream of feeling whole and being the person you always wanted to be.
Yes.
That's what we're here to save for you.
Yes.
Not just to hold you together, but to get you to blossom and flower and thrive.
Oh, I love it. I do. I feel like I should get up now and pot a plant or something. I know that makes me feel good. Well, Tony, God bless you and your family, and may you all have a safe and wonderful holiday. May your vacation be the bomb diggity. You and I had talked behind scenes of you trying to make that vacation happen, and it didn't. And, I get it. Like I said, I was fortunate enough that my getaway was economical. It was great, all of that. But now, I'm afraid to go anywhere else because now everybody else is going places. So.
And when you're a healthcare worker, you have to be extra careful.
You do. You really, really do. Well, Tony, thank you again. You always make us feel so great. Let's see what else we got going on here. Well, of course he's working to get potential new clients during this COVID. That's what any therapist want to do. That's what we're on the comments were. All right, Tony. Well, I appreciate you so much. God bless. Have a beautiful night, my friend. I'll be in touch with you soon. Thank you all. Here we had people from Charleston, South Carolina. These places are beautiful. They are great to visit. Yep, places right here in the United States. Yes, they are. All right, Tony, have a wonderful holiday, and thanks again, my friend, okay?
Thank you, Chat Daddy. Thank you, beautiful people in the audience.
Yay. All right, so do me a favor, everybody. Please go over to YouTube and subscribe to The Real Chat Daddy Show. It's free and easy. Just hit that subscribe button. Does not cost you anything. You can do the same on Facebook. Go over to The Real Chat Daddy Show on Facebook and subscribe. And do me a favor, start a watch party. Share the show. That way other people will know about the show free every night, Monday through Thursday night. Does not cost you anything. We share valuable information. I notice a lot of people are now going back to watch the shows. All you have to do is go on YouTube and you can watch the shows. If you want to know more information about yours truly, that is my website, therealchatdaddy.com, therealchatdaddy.com. And Tony, we're getting love, Tony. Let me show you the love we're getting in, my friend. People are saying they loved us tonight. Tony, we might be a runaway hit. Let me put them up there. Hold on. Thanks, chat. Yay. Thank you, Booker T. We appreciate you. Thanks, Tony. Yay. Thank you, Booker T. Miss Janice Knox, we love her. She says, another wonderful show. Thank you as well, too. We appreciate you guys so very much. Your shows are really inspirational. Oh, thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Great guests, just amazing guests, and God is in the blessing business when it comes to this show. All right, Tony, it's time for that evening snack, my friend. It's pastry day, so don't go have something good. We're out of here. Good night, everyone. Have a beautiful night.
Take care.
Holiday. See you later. We're out. Bye.
Bye.
Here